We'll begin with breaking news from Guatemala, where anti-corruption center-left candidate Bernardo Arevalo has won the presidential runoff election. Now, Arevalo ran on a platform of fighting corruption in a country dealing with both corruption and violence. Arevalo was on the ballot with conservative candidate Sandra Torres. Well, Al Jazeera's Manuel Rapalo is live at a polling station in Guatemala City. And talk to us, Manny, about this is really a surprise win for an outsider candidate. Is that right?
Good to be with you, Kimberly. Yes, look, this is an absolutely ecstatic environment that we're in right now in Guatemala's historic center with people celebrating. If you can hear that, it is just an absolute party in Guatemala City's Central Plaza. I think for our team, none of us were expecting the results to come in as fast as they can. I'm going to read you these latest results because we're still at 97.7% of the votes counted, 58.6% of those votes going to the center-left candidate, Bernardo Arevalo. As you said, a political outsider, despite the fact that Arevalo is the son of Guatemala's first democratically elected president. He was still seen here in Guatemala as a political outsider, as the sort of dark horse who came out of relative obscurity ahead of the primary elections back in June to become the front runner in this runoff election, leading in double digits. In fact, these scores that we're seeing here reflect very much the polls that we're seeing in the run-up to the runoff election today on Sunday. We've now heard from Guatemala's President Alejandro Giammattei, who took to Twitter to congratulate President-elect Bernardo Arevalo. Of course, what we are hearing from political analysts is, listen to those fireworks. People are really celebrating right now. But what we're hearing from political analysts and experts here is that there are challenges, legal challenges, apart from the governance challenges for the president-elect. The next few days will be very telling, and to get a better sense of what all that means, I want to bring in a political analyst, Edgar Ortiz, who's joining us here today. Edgar, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us today. This has been a controversial election, even before the primaries. What are your initial observations based off of what we're hearing right now?
Well, what we're seeing now is that Arevalo won because this election was a referendum against the system. So Sandra Torres from UNE, she represents the old system, the old political parties. And Bernardo Arevalo from Semilla, they represent this young party that was born in 2015 when the anti-protest movement took place right here in this Central Park we have in our backs. So there's hope for people that Arevalo can do things different, that he can fight corruption, because we lived this short period, right, from 2015 to 2019 with this anti-corruption fight, and that was completely disarticulated by Giammattei's government. So right now there's hope. There are also challenges for Arevalo, as you mentioned. The public prosecutor's office will try to attack Arevalo's party, and also probably UNE will try some legal challenges to these results, although I don't think they are going to succeed in challenging the results, but they will gain some time, and maybe they will try to seed some doubts about the elections if they can.
Now, we were noticing something that raised eyebrows this morning was the more conservative candidate, Sandra Torres. She certainly has the backing and support from the more conservative elements of Guatemalan society. When asked by a local reporter here this morning if she would respect the results of today's election, she didn't answer that question. In fact, just moments ago, her campaign announced that they canceled their speech for this evening. How should we be reading into this?
Well, first of all, it's very funny to consider Sandra conservative, because she completely changed her political position over the years. She used to be, UNE used to be a leftist party. She has photos with Fidel Castro, with Hugo Chavez, but all from the sudden, she's now a conservative. But the thing is, she knew she was going to lose. She always loses in runoffs since 2015. No matter who is the candidate, the opposition candidate, she will always lose. So she knew she's going to lose. And she now is trying to see doubts about the election. She's trying to not concede and to claim that, there are some inconsistencies in the system, or that some electoral boards, they are the ones who count the votes, that they are members of Semilla, or they are members of, the conspiracy of whatever. So she will try to fight the election because she's incapable of winning in the polls.
And Edgar, there are so many challenges that the incoming president is going to be faced with when it comes to the economy, when it comes to climate change, when it comes to poverty, which stands at 60% right now, worsening crime. There are so many of these challenges that, for the most part, many people agree cannot be fixed overnight. Isn't that right?
No, it is right. And Arevalo has a big challenge because people have really high expectations about what Arevalo can do as president. But the thing is, if the government of Guatemala, you think about it as a car, if we are cars with no tires, with no gasoline, and, driving this car is very hard. So for him to deliver results in a short term will be very difficult, and people will be very impatient. And you will have Congress. I mean, we have to speak that later, but Congress, he has a minority in Congress, only 23 congressmen over 160. So it will be very hard for him. They will have to be very, very creative in order to bring some tangible results in the first 3-4 months in order to gain governability, because it will be very hard to govern this country with all the opposition they are going to face.
And Edgar, any concerns over the coming days?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we may see some actions from the public prosecutor's office. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, Movimiento Semilla faces a very dubious case that the Attorney General has brought. They brought charges arguing that back in 2018, when they were conforming the party, they included some false signatures over the members of the party, and they turned this case in a whole scheme of organized crime. And they are coming after some members of Semilla in the following days, probably.
Edgar Ortiz, thank you so much, political analyst here in Guatemala. A lot of celebrations taking place here in the city, in the town square, but also in other parts of Guatemala City. A lot of challenges taking place, all of that tabled for now. Now is the time for celebration. Kimberly, back to you.
That's right, the celebration, but tomorrow the hard work begins. All right, thank you so much, Manny. We appreciate that on our top story there of the news of the presidential runoff in Guatemala and the win by Bernardo Arevalo. Thank you so much there.